cheerful, weary, or unimpressed, amazed. I do all of it. Liu Yuning's Paris runway debut was more than a fashion moment. Liu Yuning's first experience walking a professional fashion runway in Paris turned out to be much more than a glamorous appearance. The Chinese singer and actor arrived in Paris with little experience in the fashion world, yet quickly found himself at the center of attention during his first ever runway appearance. What made the moment especially memorable was not simply his height, appearance, or ability to carry a high-fashion look. Behind the polished images was a performer who admitted that he was genuinely nervous and had been taking the opportunity very seriously. His Paris experience was featured in the Paris special of the second season of the travel variety show Earth is Fresh. During the trip, Liu Yuning experienced several major firsts at once. His first visit to Paris, his first time attending a fashion show, and his first time actually walking a professional runway. For someone who had previously described himself as relatively unfamiliar with fashion, it was an unexpected new chapter. A first runway appearance with an unexpected sense of confidence. Liu Yuning's physical presence immediately made an impression. Standing at approximately 1.9 meters tall, he has a naturally striking silhouette, with broad shoulders, a long frame, and a defined waist. Those characteristics are particularly noticeable in a runway setting, where posture, proportions, and movement can dramatically affect how clothing is presented. When Liu appeared in sunglasses and a sharply styled outfit, the contrast was striking. He projected a cool and controlled image, even though he had previously acknowledged feeling nervous about the experience. That contrast quickly became part of the appeal. Viewers could see someone who looked completely at home under the lights, while knowing that the person behind that confident appearance was entering an unfamiliar professional environment for the first time. The reaction also sparked playful comments from fans, with some joking that Liu Yuning might have unexpectedly discovered a second career as a model. His height certainly gave him an advantage, but his runway debut was not simply a matter of physical appearance. One of the most interesting details was his involvement in the performance itself. Rather than treating the runway as nothing more than a walk from one end to the other, Liu reportedly suggested walking backward during part of the presentation. The movement was intended to create a feeling of reversing time and moving toward a sense of rebirth. Combined with changes in the music, the movement contributed to the larger concept of the presentation. It was a relatively small creative decision, but it demonstrated something important about Liu's approach. Even though fashion was unfamiliar territory for him, he was willing to think about how his own movements could contribute to the overall performance. That willingness to participate creatively may have helped make the debut feel more distinctive. The nervousness behind the confident image. The most interesting part of Liu Yuning's Paris appearance may actually have happened away from the runway. Despite looking calm and confident in front of the audience, Liu later described the day as one of the most stressful experiences he had faced. His nervousness was not simply about performing in front of an unfamiliar audience in Paris. He was also thinking about the people behind the fashion presentation. For Liu, the runway represented the work of designers and the many other professionals involved in creating the final show. Their time, creativity, effort, and personal ambitions were all connected to the presentation that audiences eventually saw. That realization appears to have increased the pressure he placed on himself. Instead of presenting himself as someone who had suddenly become an expert in fashion, Liu acknowledged that he was entering an unfamiliar field. His approach was much more straightforward. He recognized the opportunity, took it seriously, prepared himself, and tried to perform at his best. That attitude gives the runway appearance a different meaning. The confidence viewers saw was not necessarily the confidence of someone who believed he had mastered fashion. It was the confidence of someone willing to step into an unfamiliar environment, despite feeling nervous. And that distinction is important. The chair walkout that became one of the funniest moments, then came one of the most unexpected moments of the entire experience. While the cast was gathered around a table during the program, Liu Yuning was filmed lifting a chair and using it as an improvised piece of exercise equipment. While everyone else appeared to be having a normal conversation, Liu seemed to have transformed the surrounding furniture into a makeshift gym. The contrast was almost comical. Instead of simply relaxing before the fashion event, he was apparently using exercise to deal with his nerves. The moment quickly became a source of jokes among viewers, with some fans comparing his behavior to an artificial intelligence system suddenly receiving an instruction to build its triceps. But beneath the humor was a practical explanation. Liu explained that exercise helped him release tension before the show. Rather than allowing his nervousness to build while sitting still, he chose to move, exercise, and redirect that energy. When Song Tian teased him about exercising more than 2 hours before the fashion show, Liu Yuning said that he was trying to make his triceps look slightly fuller. His attitude was essentially simple. There was no harm in preparing early. That small exchange revealed another side of his personality. When faced with pressure, Liu appears to prefer doing something constructive rather than simply worrying about the situation. In this case, that meant turning a chair into gym equipment. His preparation wasn't limited to fashion. The workout also fits into a broader part of Liu Yuning's recent preparation. According to the information presented in the program, Liu has maintained a regular exercise routine, particularly while preparing for his role as a criminal police officer in the upcoming drama Iron Evidence. For that character, he reportedly worked on developing more muscle and a stronger physical appearance. His physical preparation was also noticeable during other activities featured on the variety show. Liu demonstrated strong coordination, core strength, quick reactions, and stamina during several challenges. In some situations, he was able to support or lift other participants with surprising ease. That makes the seemingly ridiculous chair workout a little more understandable. What looked like a funny behind-the-scenes moment was also part of a larger pattern of physical preparation. The contrast remains entertaining, though. On the runway, Liu Yuning looked like someone who had spent years navigating the fashion world. Behind the scenes, he was lifting furniture because he was nervous. That combination may be one reason the story resonated with viewers. Why the Paris debut felt different celebrity fashion appearances are hardly unusual. Actors and singers frequently attend fashion events, appear in designer clothing, and become part of major industry presentations. Simply showing up at a fashion show does not necessarily represent a major career shift. Liu Yuning's case was more interesting because he entered the experience with a relatively open acknowledgement that fashion was not his area of expertise. His starting point was not, "I know everything about fashion." It was essentially the opposite. He was entering an unfamiliar environment and learning how to operate within it. That gave his appearance a more personal dimension. His runway debut combined several elements: physical preparation, nervousness, creative experimentation, and a willingness to take the opportunity seriously. The backward walking idea is particularly revealing. A performer could simply follow the instructions given by the production team. Liu instead contributed an idea that connected his movement to the conceptual direction of the presentation. That does not necessarily mean he has suddenly become a professional fashion model. It does, however, suggest that he was willing to approach the runway as a form of performance, rather than treating it as nothing more than a photo opportunity. And that distinction matters for an actor and performer. Could fashion become another part of his career? The obvious question now is whether the Paris appearance could lead to more opportunities in fashion. There is not enough information to say that Liu Yuning is beginning a major modeling career, and it would be premature to treat one runway appearance as evidence of a permanent transition. But the experience does raise an interesting possibility. Liu already has experience across multiple areas of entertainment, including music, acting, and variety programming. His Paris appearance introduced another environment in which his physical presence and performance skills could potentially be useful. Fashion, however, requires more than being tall or looking good in a suit. A successful runway performer needs to understand movement, attitude, timing, visual storytelling, and the creative concept behind the presentation. Liu demonstrated at least some willingness to engage with those elements during his first experience. His suggestion to walk backward is a small example, but it is also revealing. He was thinking about the meaning of the movement rather than simply completing the walk. That kind of creative participation could be valuable if he receives additional opportunities in the future. At the same time, one appearance should remain exactly that. One appearance. Whether Liu develops a stronger connection with the fashion industry will depend on what opportunities come next and how he chooses to approach them. For now, the Paris runway should be viewed as an interesting new experience rather than proof of a major career transformation. The real story may be his approach to pressure. Perhaps the most memorable part of Liu Yuning's Paris experience is not the runway itself. It is the way he responded to being outside his comfort zone. He openly acknowledged his lack of fashion experience. He admitted that he was nervous. He recognized the responsibility attached to the opportunity. He exercised to manage the pressure. He communicated ideas to the creative team, and eventually he stepped onto the runway and performed. That sequence tells a more interesting story than simply saying that a Chinese celebrity looked good at Paris Fashion Week. It shows a performer encountering something unfamiliar and finding a practical way to deal with it. There is also something relatable about the contrast. On camera, Liu looked composed. Off camera, he was working out with a chair. The image is funny, but it also illustrates a simple idea. Confidence does not always mean feeling completely fearless. Sometimes confidence means recognizing that something matters, accepting that you are nervous, preparing as much as possible, and doing it anyway.